All right, guys, our last video from Mushroom Kingdom. So tune in next week to see where we'll wind up then. All right, so we're going to do our last example from 7.8 and go through that. And this is going to be one of the solving ones. So we're going to factor completely. So that means we got to check for our GCFs, check, make sure all our pieces are done, and solve it. So this is combining everything from this whole chapter all into one kind of problem. So when we have a problem like this that shows up and it has variables on both sides of the equal sign, true equation here, we got to make it equal to 0 before we can start solving. All of those solvings that we did, it was set equal to 0. They have to equal 0 in order for us to solve them. So our first things first is we got to get this 10x over there. To get it to cross, we just subtract it from both sides. So minus 10x from both sides. And we're going to wind up with our 2x cubed plus 8x squared minus 10x equals 0. All right, so now we're into our factoring step. So what we need to do first is check for our GCF. So the greatest common factor on all three pieces is going to be a 2 and an x. I can take those out of both of those. So I take a 2 and an x out, and we're going to be left with x squared plus 4x minus 5. And this still equals 0. We got to bring all of our bits with us when we go down. So now I have a trinomial. So we're going to ignore that 2x for a hot minute. Remember, that's our little line meter. He's just going to hang out in front, and we're going to ignore him for a little while. And we're going to factor that trinomial that's left over. So what we're going to do is we're going to do our x frame. And we're going to take our a, our b, and our c and multiply those together. The a and the c go together. And we put our minus 5 at the top. 1 times negative 5 gives us negative 5. And then we need a 4 at the bottom, our b. So now we need our things that are going to multiply to be negative 5, add to be a positive 4. So remember, if we're multiplying to be a negative number, that means one of these factors must be negative. So our factors of 5 are, well, 1 and 5. That's all it's got. So if we do one of the factors being negative, if I do a negative 1 and a positive 5 and add those guys together, I'll get my positive 4. So we're going to wind up with a negative 1 and a positive 5 as our two new factors. So I'm going to come over here, and we're going to have that 2x is still hanging out in front. And then what we're going to have here is we're going to have our x squared. And then these guys are coming in instead of this 4x. So we're going to have our minus 1x, our plus 5x, and our minus 5. And this all still equals 0. Don't drop your things. Bring everything with you. So what we're going to have here is now we're going to do this our factoring by grouping, and we're going to break this up into our pairs and take out our GCFs. So we're going to have what's our greatest common factor of this first pair is going to be an x. And what's left over is x minus 1. The greatest common factor of this pair over here is going to be 5. And we're left with our x minus 5. And then we got to come back and grab all those things that are just hanging out in the beginning. So we have our 2x. We have our equals 0. And we're almost there. We're almost ready to start solving. And we're going to have our 2x. And then we're going to put this in our factor form. So this guy's going to, oops, I did this wrong. That's a 1. It's 5 divided by 5. That's a 1. Sorry, my kids are yelling in the background kind of loud, and I'm trying to get them to stop. I'm not doing anything. All right. So we've got our x minus 1. And then we're going to have our x plus 5. So these guys match. So they became this x plus 1, and then this guy and this guy became our x plus 5. And this all still equals 0. So now we check that each of these pieces is properly factored. So this guy, I can't take it down any further. This guy, I can't take it down any further. And this guy, I can't get any smaller. So those are all ready to go. So now we've got to solve it. Just like we did in 7.4, we've done this already in a few of these sections. where we take each piece and separate it and set them equal to 0. So we're going to have our, and I'm going to do kind of small. So we're going to have our 2x equals 0. And I'm going to switch colors in between so that we can see them. So, and then we're going to have our x minus 1 equals 0. And we're going to have our x plus 5 equals 0. All right, so when we solve these, if I have my 2x equals 0, to get x by itself, I've got to divide by 2. Well, 0 divided by 2 is just 0, so we have x equals 0. Now we have this x minus 1. To get x by itself, I add 1 to both sides, so x equals a positive 1. So now we have x plus 5 equals 0. Let me change colors so we can see what happens here. And so what we need to do to get x by itself is subtract 5 from both sides. And we get x equals negative 5. So these are our 3 solutions to this problem. So we've factored this completely, and now we've solved it. These are our solutions. All right. So that is the end of 7.8. So this is when I take care of my reminders. So be safe, take care of yourself. Remember to be patient with your grown-ups. I know I mentioned that in the last video, but I still mean it. 7.7 and 7.8 should be open right now on the assignments tab on Big Ideas. So email me if you have any questions. I will help you as best I can. We will figure out something to get you where you need to be. So I'm here to help. Please let me know if you need anything, even if it is not math related. I'm here to do whatever you need me to do. So I was gonna say there's one more little surprise about Mushroom Kingdoms. I've got a little Goomba right here behind me. So I miss you guys. Have a good week. I will post more videos next week. Who knows where we'll wind up. So have a good week, guys.